Today we're going to discuss creating a killer LinkedIn profile with the expert who literally wrote the book. Make sure to stick around until the end when she shares the one mistake many make and how to easily fix it.
Welcome to the AP Now podcast, the podcast that covers trends, insights, and emerging issues impacting every accounts payable function.
I'm Mary Schaefer, founder of AP Now, and I'm joined today by Brenda Bernstein, the author of a really neat book, How to Write a Killer LinkedIn Profile and 18 Mistakes to Avoid. Welcome, Brenda, and let's dive right in. The first mistake you mentioned on your list, and I fear I make it as well as many others, is selling yourself short, not using keywords and using an ineffective headline. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by that?
Yeah, so you have an opportunity in your headline to do more than just state your job title and the organization where you work. You can have a unique selling proposition, which tells what you offer to a company. So are you someone who improves processes and saves costs? You can put that in your headline. You can also, and this is a really good strategy for job seekers, is that you can put a whole bunch of keywords, whichever ones are the most important to you. Now, if you're an accounts payable person, you're going to have accounts payable in your headline. I think that's, that's pretty standard, but that you can go beyond that. So maybe put your industry. You can put corporate, you could put medical, hospital, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, finance, whatever that keyword is that describes what you do. You can put multiple ones, because then if someone's looking for someone who does accounts payable in one of those areas, then you're more likely to show up for it. You can also put some of the more detailed things that you do in your job. So do you do accounting, corporate accounting?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do annual audits? Do you do account reconciliation, general ledger, payroll, variance analysis?
Okay.
All of these are things that you can put into your headline. And the headline's not the only place that you can put those. You can also put them in your job titles. And when you get what's called keyword density, which means the keywords show up multiple times, if you have them in your headline, you have them in your job titles, then you're going to get more bang for your buck, so to speak. When people start to search for someone like you, you're going to come up because you have those keywords multiple places.
Okay.
So you can, and you now have 220 characters for your headline, and you have 100 characters for each of your job titles. So use them. LinkedIn put those characters there for a reason. So it is an opportunity.
So, as a writer, one of the things they tell you is not to keep using the same words over and over again. But it seems to me like for this, you might want to. So I might put my job title as accounts payable manager, for example, or accounts payable director. And then in my headline, I might repeat the word accounts payable again. And then I guess in that description, repeat it again.
You might repeat it again. Yes. So the job titles, you can put your actual job title, and then you can use a separator, like maybe the up and down. It's called a pipe symbol. It's above your backslash on your keyboard. A lot of people have never realized that this symbol is on their keyboard.
Me too. I always have to look it up.
Yeah. And you can use that. So you can say accounts payable, senior accounts payable, whatever it is, and then that up and down line, and then go on and say some of your top keywords. So yes, you do want it repeated. Now, you don't want to repeat it a gazillion times once you write about the job, or you don't want to do it a zillion times in the summary, because then it'll look like you're really, doing something that's not natural to keyword stuff. And you don't want to do that. But putting it in your headline, in your job titles, that's going to be fine.
So for those who bother to read the show notes that are associated with this, that is not a good example of the way to do it, because I'm going to use certain keywords like LinkedIn over and over and over again. But that's for a different purpose. I now come to the point where I give out the show notes to different people who might be involved, and I say, don't think this is the way I normally write. This is not an example of my writing. Okay,
Yeah.
so you brought up another interesting point, at least to me. It's never clear to me if you have a job that you're happy at, you're not looking, but of course, if somebody came with a great offer, you'd entertain it. Do you
Right.
put the company name in the headline or not?
It's fine to put the company name in the headline. It depends on what your priorities are. If you want to use that space for other things, then it's okay not to have your company
Okay.
in the headline.
Because I noticed now when I was looking as we were getting ready for this that quite a few people did not have their company names there. And then I
Yeah,
thought,
you don't have to.
okay. All right. So back in the good old days, like 2005, it was often recommended that you have several versions of your resume. And then depending upon what job you were applying for, you'd send individual ones. I can remember one of my children, I'm going to try and keep them anonymous, she had 12 of them and they were all labeled with different things. Well, with LinkedIn, you can't do that. You can't go in and change your profile every time you apply for a new job. So
Right.
how do you address that issue? And do you have any suggestions?
Well, first of all, let me say that is still good practice for resumes.
Okay.
That has not changed. You still want to tailor and customize your resume for every position that you apply for. And you're not able to do that with LinkedIn. So your options are either say very little if you're applying to jobs that have very different, if they're very different targets and you would really paint yourself in a different way for each one, then sometimes you need to say less so that you don't turn off any of them. So if
Right.
you're applying, to be, a graphic designer in one place and an accountant in another place,
Yeah,
I don't know. It's going to be a little tough, but then what you do have is the opportunity of that about section, which used to be called
right.
the summary section. Now it's called the about section. And you do have an opportunity to explain, well, why is it that you used to do graphic design and now you want to be an accountant? But if you're actually looking for both, then you might just need to let your job history speak for itself because
Okay.
it's going to be a little tough. One thing I do recommend is that if you have a primary, like if really in your heart of hearts you would rather be an accountant, then sell yourself as an accountant. And then let's say there are multiple accountant jobs and there are different
Right.
different fields, different industries, or different job duties, and you're able to do all of them. Then you want to put all of that in
Okay.
your LinkedIn profile. Cover as many bases as you can so that you look like you're qualified for as many of those positions as possible. And I think for most people, that's really what you're dealing with, is that
Mhm.
the jobs you're applying for are all in kind of the same ballpark, and there just might
Right.
be slight variations between
Right.
them.
Right. Right.
Put it all in there.
So one of the things that I personally do, and I guess I'm going to learn whether this was a bad thing or not, because the damage has already been done. But in my career, which has gone on for quite a few years, there have been one or two things that I've done in jobs that maybe I did well. Let's just say I did them well and leave it at that. But I couldn't stand them. I couldn't stand doing them, and I never wanted to do them again. So I would just leave that off my resume. Is that an acceptable practice?
I think it is, absolutely. If it's not something you want to be doing, then why would you sell yourself as someone who does it well? I
Right.
agree.
Okay. All right. So keywords, because that's kind of a new concept. Anyway, for us that are, more than 30 years old, we didn't grow up with keywords, if you will. So how important is it that you have a particular keyword for a particular job in your headline? If you don't have that keyword in there, will you miss out on certain jobs?
I think it's likely that you will.
Oh,
And not just in your headline, but as we discussed, to have those in your job titles as well. And throughout your profile, also in the skills section, there's the skills and endorsements. If you can put it in there and get some endorsements for it, then that's always good as well.
okay. And are those endorsements important?
That's a good question. I think they were at one point.
Yeah.
LinkedIn was kind of pushing for a while and sending out to everybody, hey, endorse this person for this skill. And then they stopped. So it's become more difficult to get endorsements. And I think that recruiters realize that. So if you do have a lot of endorsements for something, that's great. But if you don't, it won't necessarily count against you, depending on maybe where you are in your career, because the way that LinkedIn has treated that section has changed a lot over time.
Okay. Okay.
But one good way to get endorsements is go and start endorsing other people. Start looking at people you know in your network, give them some endorsements. They are likely to then reciprocate and give you some.
Okay. So I've got the square, that they talk about. And one of the things, and I know people were being nice. So, I'm not complaining. If you gave me an endorsement, I'm not complaining. But sometimes I get endorsed for things that I'd never done that.
Mm-hmm.
And you just leave it there. I've never gotten job offers for things I've never done, though.
Right. No, I would see if you can just take out that skill. You can always edit. One way to prevent that is to make sure you have all of the skills complete so that people can't just add more. So if you have 50, that's the maximum, and then people can't just add more skills to what you do. Has that happened? I'm curious, when's the last time that happened?
Well, it's been a while. In fact, I can't remember the last time that I got an endorsement, but I can remember a few times thinking, I never did that.
Yeah, that was
So I'm
happening.
pleased.
That was happening when LinkedIn was pushing endorsements, and they have stopped. So I think that's not really likely to happen anymore.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it was a little unsettling.
Yeah, I had that happen too.
Did you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did a lot.
And I remember thinking, I don't know how to do this. Thank you, but I don't know how to do this.
Exactly.
Okay. Before we address some of the basics, which I want to do, I'd like to take a quick minute and invite you to subscribe to this podcast, or if you're watching it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell on the top of your screen to be alerted when we post new episodes, which we do 2 or 3 times a week. Now, back to the very interesting Brenda. Let's talk about some basics. First of all, should everyone have a profile? And once you have one, is there some recommended period of time when it should be updated, refreshed, even if nothing's changed?
I believe that anyone in this profession, who's involved with any kind of accounting and finance should definitely have a LinkedIn profile. There are some people who don't need them for job search, don't really need them for networking. Still not a bad thing to have one, if you're an elementary school teacher might not need that, but once you get up, if you become a principal, then you might want it.
Right.
So one interesting thing is that if people search for you on Google, for instance, if you have a very common name, this might not work as well, but people will get your LinkedIn profile as one of the first things that comes up in a search. It has very, very high ratings on Google. So that's one reason to have a LinkedIn profile and have it look really good. You don't have to create a website for who you are. You can just have a LinkedIn profile.
With good keywords.
With good keywords, yes. If you think you might ever be interested in a job that a recruiter calls you and asks you about, then you should have a LinkedIn profile, because recruiters are looking on LinkedIn. They're looking for someone like you. And if you know that you are a job seeker, then you definitely need to have a LinkedIn profile and have it look really, really good and have it be complete, and use the job search features on LinkedIn and use all the features that are appropriate for you on LinkedIn.
Is it important to have a lot of connections?
It is. So you definitely want to have at least 500 connections. I recently tried to find someone on LinkedIn. He had under 500 connections and I could not find him.
And you knew his name?
I knew his name. It was not an uncommon name, but it wasn't an extremely common name. But I couldn't find him. I found all other kinds of people who had his name, but I was not able to find him on LinkedIn. And that was because he didn't have enough connections. And that happens. And you also are not going to be able, if you're looking for something on LinkedIn. So this is another reason to be on LinkedIn. You might be looking for a vendor to help with something.
Right.
You might be looking for something. And so you want to be able also to be easily connected to those resources that you're looking for. So having a larger network makes it much easier for you to find the quality and the breadth of resources that you want to find.
Does it matter who those connections are, or is it just the number?
It matters who those connections are connected to.
Okay, all right. Okay, and unfortunately, the way LinkedIn does it now, once you have 500 connections, that's it. You don't know if the person has 501 connections or 5,000.
Right.
Yeah, I remember the only time I was concerned about my number of connections and whom I was connected to when I was like at 489.
But what you can see is the connections that you have in common with someone. And
Yes,
that is really significant. And another reason that you want to reach out to everyone you know who's a high quality connection. I'm not saying to accept every single person who
right.
is trying to scam you and spam you and connect you from, various countries, and you can
Yeah,
tell that they're not a valuable connection. Don't connect with those people. They're not going to be helpful for you. But when someone, let's say they look you up and they say, oh, wow, you're connected with this person and that person, the other person who I know and respect, that's going to give you credibility. So you definitely want to connect with good people and put some time into that. You asked about updating your
right,
profile, how often to do that.
right.
And you it depends on your purpose. But one thing you should definitely be doing is looking for who you want to connect with and who those high quality connections are. Spend a little bit of time every week just connecting with a few people. That probably would be useful. If you have a new employee come into your office, connect with them. If you have a new vendor, connect with them. If you're interacting with another company, another person in accounts payable somewhere else, connect with them. It's just a way to build that network. And the other thing that you might want to be doing on a regular basis is if you see any kind of postings on LinkedIn or off LinkedIn that you think would be valuable to people, valuable to other people who are in your field, post them, share them. It makes you look like you're a contributor, and recruiters like that, and the people who you're connected with might find something that you post to be valuable.
So do you have, I know what LinkedIn says, and I'm curious to see because it seems to me a little obsessive, but do you have a recommendation as to how often somebody should be posting on LinkedIn?
It's going to vary depending on what your purpose is for being on LinkedIn. I'd say, if you do something once a week, that's probably fine.
Okay. Because I know LinkedIn was saying every day, and even me, who, my job is creating content,
Right.
I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep up.
And I mean, I post a little bit more frequently, or I try. It depends, like how big is your audience? I'm marketing
Right,
myself all the time. So I'm going to want to put out more postings. If you're in a job that you like and that's that, if you want to put something out that you see that's interesting once a week, then yeah, it creates value. Anything that creates value for your network.
right. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they don't get around to trying to get connections on LinkedIn or posting anything until they're out of work. And then it's like, oh my God, oh my, and that's
Mhm.
okay.
Right. And recruiters, by the way, like to see that you have shared things and liked things and commented on things, and they are an active member of the community. That is a plus when you are looking for a job. And as you just said, don't wait until you're until you're looking for a job to do that. Become that person now, and
Right,
maybe you will get that job offer before you are out of a job.
right, right. Or at least just set up and you're not trying to put up a profile when you're upset. And then if you're like me, I know back in the day when we didn't have LinkedIn, I wouldn't keep my resume up to date. And then like every 10 years, I'd be looking for a new job. And that's when I'd update my resume, which was really bad. And then it was like, well, what did I do for the last, and you forget those important projects where you really made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Enough of that. So, Brenda, first of all, can you hold up your book and show everybody?
Here's my
Show everybody the book. It's available on LinkedIn. It's available on LinkedIn. No, it's available on Amazon, and I'm going to have a link to the book, the Amazon link, and to Brenda's website for all the services that she offers in the show notes. Okay, so Before we discuss the importance of having media items in your
Let me,
profile,
Mary, I just want to make it clear. So this book is the hard copy, as you can tell. It's got a lot of pages.
real copy.
It's a real, yes, hold it in your hands copy. The last update on this was for 2019, and as you know, we're in 2021 now.
Yes.
So it's still a good book, and a lot of the material is still current and relevant, but a lot of the images might be outdated. So when you look on Amazon, you're going to see there's one click where you see the hard cover, the hard copy of the book, soft cover, and then there's another place where you can click and get the Kindle version.
Yes.
So the Kindle version is more updated. So I would go for that one. And then if you want the next update, you just have to send me a receipt and you'll get on our list so that you will get a PDF in the future if you want to update further. So, you know, we've been starting to work on a new version right now, updated for 2021. So
isn't it amazing how things change?
Yeah.
You would think something like this wouldn't. Okay. Okay, so before we discuss the importance of having media items in your profile and how to get them, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how you came to write this book and how you came to advise people on their LinkedIn profiles. I'm always really curious about people who have wonderful niche businesses like you do.
I started out, well, I was an English major in college. I went to Yale and I was English major. And after 10 years of practicing public interest law, I decided it was time to go back to writing. And during that time, I had done a lot of coaching for people who are applying to college, which is another thing. It's another part of my business is college essay coaching. So I thought I was going to do that and started my business.
Surprise!
And found that I wasn't getting quite enough clients to do that full time for my business. And so I added on resume writing. And it was just around the time that LinkedIn was starting to become something. That was the end of 2008, beginning of 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, well, I guess I better have a LinkedIn profile. It seems like something that might be important. So I set up a LinkedIn profile and I started connecting with people. And back then, if you connected with someone in LinkedIn, it really meant something.
Yeah.
It meant that you were going to help each other out and you were going to have a conversation and be part of a network together for real. So this one guy in my network said, you know, you should do LinkedIn profile reviews, offer free LinkedIn profile reviews to people and give them feedback on their LinkedIn profiles. And at the time, I mean, I wasn't a salesperson. I didn't know anything about marketing. I was like, really? I should give something away for free?
Yes.
Really? Are you kidding
Free
me?
sample. Have you been to Costco where they go around with the plates?
Right? So I said, okay. I started doing it. And I did that for a little while. And then I decided, okay, I'm learning enough that I think I can start charging for this. So I started charging $25, you know, to do it. And I did 25 LinkedIn reviews for $25 each. And those went really, really fast. And I kept learning and learning. And I started to find mistakes that people were making, very common mistakes. So I thought, well, maybe instead of telling every individual the mistake that they're making, I should start blogging, because also being a new business owner, my web designer said, you should have a blog. I was like, okay, I think I have a blog topic now.
A topic, huh?
And I started writing articles about mistakes people were making on LinkedIn. Before long, I had so many of these mistakes that I decided, oh, so the other thing, this is a story of taking people's advice and saying yes, right? The other thing that people started telling me is you need to have something to give away so that people will join your list. So I put all the blog articles together and organized them into a book. It was called LinkedIn Power Tune-Up. And I started giving that away when people would sign up for my list. And eventually there were so the book started getting so long that I was like, I can't just give this away anymore.
Too
And
much.
so I put it onto Amazon and started selling it, and it just became a bestseller like overnight. It was beyond what I ever expected. Uh, and it was really cool too, because along the way I really found out that this stuff works. I had a guy who was an executive on an oil rig, and I just remember him because he was one of my first clients where I did one of these LinkedIn profile reviews. I think we wrote content for him for his LinkedIn profile, but he got a job offer, and the person who hired him told him that the thing that made him stand out was how seriously he took his LinkedIn profile and how he presented himself there. And that gave me a lot of confidence to move forward and to really, really encourage people to have a good LinkedIn profile. Now, it's not going to make you stand out in the same way as it did
Right.
11 years ago to have a good LinkedIn profile. But you know what'll make you stand out is not having a good
I was
LinkedIn.
just going to, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yes, if you don't have one, if you don't have a picture. The other thing I see people sometimes doing, I don't know why they do this, like they put their name up there as Mary S. instead of Mary Schaefer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, what's that about?
That might be the way they have it, or it might be a security and privacy setting that they have that keeps other people from seeing all
Okay,
the information.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, so we promised we're going to talk about media items. So in your book, you discuss not having media items in your about and experience section. Can you discuss a little bit about what you mean by a media item? Because I'm always confused, to be perfectly honest, by that term, and how an accounting, finance, accounts payable, treasury, or audit person, people who we're making this for, might go about getting some of them, even if they don't regularly write and speak in public.
So I think in this industry, it might not be as essential. It really depends. Like, who are you? If you're in marketing, you're going to want to have media there.
Yeah.
If you're in accounting, maybe not as much. I would say if you do have anything, then it's good to put it there. You should know that it's an option to put it there. You can have, if there's a PowerPoint, if that's a common thing that people put there, you can have something that sells your company. Maybe it's a brochure for your company that you put up there. One of the things that you can do on LinkedIn, even if you're not looking for a job and you don't want to network and you don't want any of it, you can promote your company, and that will always be looked upon favorably if someone contacts you and says, hey, we're looking for someone to do accounts payable for our company. Who
Right.
should we talk to? We found you and you look really good. Your company looks really good. So what materials can you attach to your current position that sell your company? So anything
So
like that.
if I give one talk, it's okay to put the PowerPoint presentation up there?
Absolutely.
Okay. All righty. And I tell people, like, you may think you're not looking for a job, you may not be looking for a job, you may think everything is hunky-dory, but in the last 5 years, we've seen companies that at least I never thought go bankrupt, and people who had good jobs that they thought, these were lifetime jobs, and they were, by the way.
Yeah.
When the company went up in smoke, they were the ones hustling around for their link to make a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. I was watching, there's a movie on Netflix right now about, how funny. It's a movie on Netflix about Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Blockbuster looked like they were going to be around forever, and then
Right.
made a couple mistakes and they were gone.
They were gone. They were gone. Yep. And that's a perfect example. And we've seen it a lot, unfortunately, in the retail industry in the last few years.
Yeah.
Okay.
COVID, there's been a lot of
Perfect.
businesses
Right.
haven't made it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then of course, a lot have done really well, or some have done really well. I don't want to say a lot, but
Right. Which means you can find a job, but
right.
something might happen and you'll have to find a job, and you want to be set up well to do that, not
Right.
have to scramble at the last minute and waste valuable time.
Right.
So,
Right. Okay. Brenda, what's the biggest mistake you see folks making on their LinkedIn profiles, and how can they fix it? And I'm praying to God, this is not one that I'm making.
well, There are a lot, but one that I noticed on some of the profiles I looked at who could be, members of your organization
Mhm.
is that their image, their headshot is not professional. And I think that you can really hurt yourself by having a casual image, a blurry image as your headshot on LinkedIn. Because if someone is looking at you versus another person with the same skills, and the other person is looking like really sharp and put together and a clear photo, and who are they going to choose if you have the same skills? There is something about that visual impact that really matters. And I think sometimes people who have their head in the numbers all the time, might not think about that so much. But
Yeah,
it's important to think about. And then there's also a background image on
right.
LinkedIn. And across the board, the folks in accounts payable that I looked at, and even director level, did not have that background image. Put something there other than the default LinkedIn
So
background.
what do you recommend they put I finally got one, and I'm going to be honest, so everybody who's listening to this, I've only had a background image, I would say, for less than 2 years. I don't remember exactly when I put it up there. What would somebody in accounting or accounts payable put up there?
First of all, you can change it. You don't have to keep the same background image forever. So you can put something that represents your company, some marketing material from your company. That's one thing you can put there. You can put the skyline of the city where you
Okay.
work.
Mhm.
You can put, even if you put a solid color or a pattern, you can do that. You can put something that is meaningful to you, something that has to do with numbers and calculations and finance. Sometimes people put graphs where it's going up.
Mine, huh?
What?
You saw my background.
I don't remember what it is.
One with the graphs.
Graphs. Oh, you have graphs. Yeah. So things like that. You want to make sure that the graph is trending up.
Yeah. Good point. Now I've got to go back and check. This replaced, I used to have one that was the Northern Lights before I had the graph, and I was not impressed with that.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so backgrounds. Okay, something to focus on. Well, that's great, Brenda. I think our audience may also like episode 86 on business etiquette on YouTube. The link will appear momentarily to the left, as will a link for a woman who talked about finding a job during the pandemic.